So 2 weeks ago, I made a decision on how I'm going to change the approach to my reselling business. And already in just the 2 weeks, it's already had an amazing effect on my life. I want to be talking about that. Plus, I'm going to be throwing my thoughts into the arena of eBay's new promoted listings policy changes that seem to have the entire reselling community up in a rage and ready to riot. So let's hop into that. Hey, what's up, guys? Kyle, Thrift Boss channel here on YouTube. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me for a few. Definitely want to have a conversation in this video. We're not doing anything crazy, finding out stuff in the wilds, any great treasures in this vid, or selling any great treasures. That will definitely pick up. We'll pick that up again next video. I really want to talk about a few things. One of them being eBay's new. I'm really late on this, which I realized. I even wasn't going to talk about this particular topic, which eBay's new promoted listings. Seems to have the old YouTube reselling community up in arms. Seems like people are pretty pissed off. But I have some thoughts on that, and they might be a little bit different from some of what we're seeing out there. But before we get into that, I do want to talk about, like I said in the intro, a decision I made. It's a conscious decision I made 2 weeks ago. For a lot of folks out there, especially if reselling is your primary source of income, you make business decisions and you make personal decisions, and sometimes they can definitely affect each other in a major way. And it's something that's been happening over the past few years with my business, my growing eBay or online reselling business, that has affected my personal life. I made some changes, and they're they're honestly long overdue changes. And I do want to hear your thoughts. At the heart of what I'm doing is I'm basically changing the priorities of my reselling business, altering my workday. I made some notes, which is why I'm looking down here, and I'm putting a few more guidelines into my reselling day to day in order to get more of what I've been missing, or at least noticing that I'm certainly missing. And one of the main reasons that I enjoy being a reseller and why I'm even doing this business, and that reason is freedom. So I started reselling back in 2012, and it just happened by chance, by circumstance. I was actually bedridden. I got in a motorcycle accident and I couldn't walk. I was bedridden for about a month. And at the time I was a server. I was working out in Los Angeles, and a motorcycle accident left me, so I couldn't walk, and obviously I couldn't work for that month, but the bills were still coming in. So I was trying to find ways, once I got back on my feet, to make money, because I was going to be behind bills, so I needed additional income. And I found on YouTube, like many of us probably did, people were going out into thrift stores, and they were what looked like random junk to me. People were buying, and then they were selling it and making money online. I never once knew that people were actually making good money doing it. I was also living in Los Angeles pursuing my acting career, and that's why serving jobs, that's like the stereotypical thing, right? Where you hear a lot of actors at some point you're basically working nights, so you keep your days open for auditions. As soon as I could, got back on my feet, went to a Goodwill, and it all started. It started simply like that. Like for so many of us, it was a $3 Hummel figurine. But one of the many reasons that I continue to be a reseller is because I love the freedom that it brings. And there's a lot of different, not just physical freedom, where I can kind of do this wherever I have been. I've lived in multiple places since 2012. It also gives me, it has come to give me financial freedom as my business has grown, and it is now my primary source of income. It has been for the past 8 years or so. So then, you have the freedom of the job itself, where you kind of can set your own hours for the most part. There might be, everybody has different business models or different ways they want to do things. Some people want to wake up first thing and go to the thrift store at 9 a.m. or whatever it opens. And some people like to be the first at garage sales at 6 a.m. Well, what have you. But basically you get to kind of pick and choose how you want to do. Choose if I want to go to estate sales, garage sales on the weekend. I get to buy storage units, liquidation pallets. There's all these different avenues of this online reselling business. I can choose to list a handful of items today, or I can list 25 items. I can choose to take a day off or not. Last year, I was away for 2 months of the year. The year before that, 2023, I was actually on the road for 4 months vacationing. And I wouldn't be able to do that. In most cases. There's always going to be exceptions. If I had a regular 9 to 5 or work for somebody else, I wouldn't really be able to do that. Don't have a boss to answer to, only the thrift boss. And he can be a real prick sometimes. I don't have to punch in and out. I don't have to sit in traffic. I don't have to make small talk around the coffee machine and have someone steal my sandwich from the company fridge. I've worked for over 50 separate companies in my life. That's kind of the plight of being an actor, because you take a job that you can get, and then if an audition comes up and it happens to be during your working hours, you got to go to the audition, and most of the time your job's like, we can't have you just leave it randomly in the middle of the day. So that's why I've had so many jobs, because I've had to leave so many, or they fired me for leaving in the middle of the day to go to an audition. So reselling has been right at the top, or right near the top of any job that I've ever had, of these 50 jobs that I've had in my life. It's the only one that's given me the most of what I desire, which is the freedom aspect. And I think we all, as resellers, I think that's something we all have in common, is just the freedom factor that is kind of comes as being a reseller and working for ourselves. And it's not unlimited unless we're extremely wealthy. But of everything that I have done, I will say that online reselling has given me the closest version of complete freedom. So when I started in 2012, it was a very part-time gig. Between that and the occasional acting gigs, reselling was just a supplemental income for the first 4 or 5 years or so. Each year since then, however, the good news was that my income from reselling was growing. And I tried out different ways of sourcing, different ways of selling. I tried Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist. There was a few apps that came and went that I tried, and I was also doing various side gigs like Lyft and Caviar, which is, I don't know if they have Caviar out here, but it's kind of like a Grubhub or DoorDash, and continue to pursue my acting career. Over time, the online retail income kept growing, getting bigger and bitter, bitter and bitter. Is that like a Freudian slip here? It became a bigger part of my life, and it also had a bigger impact on my bank account as well. What started to happen naturally is, as my business grew, it also took up more of my personal time. More sourcing, more listing, more driving, more packing, all the things that come with being a reseller. That's kind of par for the course for, I don't know what your business model is, but there's so many different ways of doing this actual business. The form of online reselling that I enjoy the most is going out to find stuff in the wilds, as many of us do. We find a lot of one-off items. That kind of business model, obviously, it requires more time, and it also doesn't scale at an exact ratio of more time and more money. Like, we can't necessarily scale equally. We can't go say we're going to spend 2 more hours sourcing today and make 2 times more money. It's just not how it works. There's no correlation between input and output. Input of work and output of money is not necessarily a diagonal line. The thrill of the hunt, right? This treasure hunt. That's what we all love to do. That's why I like to do this business model. I know it's not the most efficient way to do this business. It's just not. But for me, I actually not sure I would love to do it in any other way. But over the last few years, I have started to feel the demands of the growing reselling business, especially the past 7 or 8 years, where this has been my primary source of income. And it has affected my personal time, my personal life more, as I have to pour more time into the growing business. And there are certain days when reselling seems to dominate my day, right? And I don't mean it to, because these are, and I have been, and I'm grateful for it, been part-time in this business for just as long as I have been being a primary income. That's never been working 40 hours a week. It's been, say, 25 to 35, and maybe there's an occasional longer week, but overall it has been traditionally much less than a 40-hour typical full-time job. Although I've been able to maintain traditionally part-time hours and still achieve a growing 6-figure income on that limited work schedule, there's a looming issue that's been going on, and this is the heart of this message, and that is that in the freedom department, there is a looming issue. Other than my sourcing days, which sourcing days are typically like a 4 to 6 hour day, especially when I'm doing the pallets. Other than that, my reselling days are about 3 to 4 hours, which isn't very much. So overall, we're looking at about a 30-hour work week. But that said, those 3 or 4 hours in a day, it's not like I sit down at 10 a.m. and work 3 straight hours or 4 straight hours. It's kind of sporadic throughout the day. Maybe you guys will appreciate some of this. So although it's only 3 to 4 hours a day, it's like random. So typically what I do is I get up, pack items from the day before that sold, and bring them to the post office. And that takes like an hour and a half. Then I come home and I work on other things. And then say an hour later, I come back, I take photos, I list for an hour or whatever. And then I go work on personal stuff or do errands or whatever, what have you. And then I come back and then I'll spend another hour doing something else. And it's like this, sporadic throughout the day. And the worst part is, it's 6 p.m. and I get an email from a customer about like a customer return, or somebody makes an offer on something at 8:15 p.m., or I get some sort of I don't know, some sort of notification from eBay that I end up opening my email, going to eBay, and figuring out whatever has to be done, and I go and do it. And in that way, it's really breaking momentum. It's breaking focus for all these other things that I like to do. My hobbies, my personal life, all these things are suffering because I'm constantly under the magical spell of eBay. eBay needing me, those dings, those that cha-ching button that comes in. I'm always picking up my phone and looking to see like what's happening in my eBay business. And I get it. That's there's it's like a double-edged sword where we can certainly enjoy the freedom that we are able to do it and work at any time. Like that's really cool. But at the same time, I just happen to notice that it's really because I have been so ingrained in working for myself for so long that tending to like customer needs or eBay needs, and the fact that I enjoy it also, I'm finding myself just opening and tending to eBay as it comes up, not 24, and unless I'm sleeping. If something happens with eBay, I'm pretty much picking up my phone and dealing with eBay no matter what I'm doing at the time, barring a few exceptions, of course. So my 4-hour workday might only be 4 hours, but that 4-hour workday is spanning little bits and pieces over the 16 or 18 hours that I'm awake in a given day. And that's the problem. 2 weeks ago, I decided to do something about it because I notice, especially in my hobbies, I'm not doing as much as I need to be doing, or that I should say that I want to be doing, especially when I'm turning to this reselling business for the fact that I have freedom of more time in my life, but I notice that I'm not feeling that. So 2 weeks ago, I decided I'm making a dedicated workday. It's still going to evolve. And that's the thing. I decided that I'm going to spend the 3 or 4 hours a day, and I'm going to do it straight. So from the time I step in my office, whatever needs to be done that day, including going to the post office, that 3 or 4 hour span, everything's going to happen in that 3 or 4 hour window that I need to take care of as an eBay reseller. And anything that happens outside of that, I'm not picking up my phone to look at eBay business, and I'm not responding to customer emails, not responding to anything regarding reselling business once my workday is over. And I started that 2 weeks ago, and it's still going to evolve. Those things may evolve. There will always going to be exceptions, of course, to what I'm trying to do here. I have to work out the kinks, basically, but I'm setting a stricter schedule. It's immediately just making the decision, I have a clear. It's like I have a clearer mind already. It's a strange, intangible thing that I'm not sure I can. It's one of the things you kind of have to feel after making the decision. But maybe you guys are already doing this. Maybe I'm just talking, blabbering about this, and this is something that you guys already do or just don't care about. Things in life will still happen, and I might still have to open my eBay or cut my eBay day in half and revisit it later in the day. Things like that will happen, but I'm going to make a conscious effort, and I have for the past 2 weeks, to set a work day and stick to it. And outside of those hours, eBay's not getting any of my attention. I'm already doing things that I've been meaning to for the past few years. I'm signing up for classes again. I'm taking Spanish classes starting Monday. I'm buying a hand pan. I don't know if you guys know a hand pan, but and I play guitar, but I don't play guitar because I haven't picked up my guitar outside of a few random nights in the past few years. But I used to play that thing all the time. But that takes time and focus, and I just haven't been able to find those things. I'm going to get a hand pan at some point very soon, and I'm going to start learning hand pan. And all these things just require a dedicated time. So I'm doing more of those things. Plus, I'm still pursuing it. I'm pursuing being an actor. I mean, I am an actor, and I also make movies. I produce movies. I write and direct movies. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on all that rambling. Now, the new policy changes with eBay with their promotional listings and the fee and how it's working. And I'm really late to the party. And it seems like every YouTuber has already talked about this. So my opinion is just that. It's just my opinion. But I have noticed that some people are a lot angrier than others. I will say right off the top, I'm not sure how much my opinion or you'll care about my opinion, especially because I don't use promoted items, but I have thoughts on it still. I have never been interested in promoting my items on eBay. I don't want to pay them more. And it never made sense to me. However, that said, that's also because I'm very picky with what I choose to put on eBay. And there are items such as, and you guys, honestly, I'm going to be naive in some ways about this stuff. because I don't use them. So forgive me where I have ignorant point of view on some of this stuff. You know, if I were selling like like regular run-of-the-mill Levi jeans or mall brands, I can see the need and why it might be necessary to promote an item when there are tens of thousands or categories that are very saturated. It makes sense that you would have to promote the items. And I don't choose, and for that reason is why I never hopped into those categories or those particular items that have so much competition. And then you have to pay a promotional fee just to get ahead. And it feels like everybody's promoting against each other. I think it's a matter of, I think what most people are mad about resellers are the principle of it. Because on one hand, I can recognize, and I think it might be worth consideration, is when us sellers put something up and we hit that little tab that turns a promoted item, say we're offering 3%, that means we are basically to ourselves, we're telling ourselves, yes, I'm selling this item for $20. Outside of eBay's fees and selling fees and shipping costs that I'm prepared to pay, I'm also willing to pay 3% fee of the 3% of the sale to eBay by them promoting and selling this. So we're already saying we're willing to take less money in our pockets to sell this item. I get the principle of it that if a buyer clicks on the ad and they don't buy it, and then somebody else who had nothing to do with the actual clicking upon the ad, but they find it organically, that they buy it, that eBay still takes the fee. I know that's just it's a matter of principle that feels wrong, and I can certainly understand and agree to that. However, the consideration that I have is that I was willing to sell this item I was willing to sell this item and take less money for it as soon as I hit that button. So I have to keep that in mind. Yes, principle feels wrong, which I think is why most people are mad, but I did make the sale. And I'm taking the amount of money that I negotiated to myself that I would take. Hopefully that all makes sense. Hopefully I explained it well. And, you know, I don't know if anybody would agree to that point of view, but it's just something that I've been tossing around and thinking. Let's just put that policy into in a different scenario. I sell at the flea market, right? Say I'm selling something for $5 and I hire a guy to walk around the flea market and say, you know, whoever you can get to come and buy this item for $5, I'll give you $1 for it. And he goes around and he finds somebody who comes over and they're going to buy it for $5, but then second thought, they're like, you know what? I decided I don't want it, and they walk away. And then somebody who came into the flea market on their own, didn't even talk to the guy that I hired to go get me sales. This guy just comes up and purchases the item for $5. And then the promotional guy that I paid, he expects $1 from me, even though he had nothing to do with the sale. It seems wrong. The principle is wrong, and it is wrong. And in that way, I do agree with how people are viewing this. However, there is also a part of me that says, knowing that I'm selling this item for $5, I'm willing to actually make $4 on it because I did pay somebody to go around, and I offered them $1 if I sold it. Regardless if that person had nothing to do with it, the result will end up being the same. This person that came in that had nothing to do with the promotion, meeting the promotional guy, and he buys it for $5, and I'm willing to take $4. So overall, and I give that guy, and end up giving the guy $1 anyway. Yeah, it feels wrong. It does. I 100% agree. But then part of me says, well, I was actually willing to take $4 for this item anyway. So I don't know. I'm getting the same result that I expected when I hired the promoted guy. It obviously would be a problem. I would have a major problem if eBay were to, if I had a single item promoted in my store and they gave that promotional fee on all my items in the store when I was only offering it on a single item. That's obviously a much different problem, and I don't think anybody would go for that one. But anyway, it's just things that I'm considering, and I don't anticipate anybody's going to agree with that, but it's just thoughts that I've been having about all this, is that the result ends up, the money that goes into my pocket ends up being the same as I was willing to take for the item, despite completely agreeing with that the principles feels a little off. Anyway, that's a lot of talking, guys, and if you made it all the way to the end, you are a miraculous magical angel, but I don't expect it. And I'm sure most people in the comments would be like, yo, you talk too much, dude. Unsub, never coming back. And I don't blame you. Anyway, we're getting back to some sales and what we found on the wilds and flea markets and liquidation pallets and all the other goodies next time, next week. So I do appreciate you guys if you made it here. Even if you didn't, I'll be talking to you in your dreams, and we'll see you guys on the wild.